It's my pleasure to welcome Robert James Doyle of the class of 1982 in DePauw University Athletic Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Phil. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up tonight, too. A lot of friends here who I didn't expect to see at all. Jay came in from Florida. He made a promise a couple years ago. I can't believe it. I came to his induction 2 years ago, and he said he'd be back, and he did it. That's a long way to come. I do appreciate it. I want to thank the committee for nominating me and electing me to the Hall of Fame, but you all need to know, as you might have noticed, I'm on the committee. And when we voted, I sent them out of the room. So I patted myself on the back, and here we are. I wrote Phil's speech, too. I want to thank DePauw University for giving me the opportunity to come here. Sports aside, we'll talk about those in a minute. They're great, but DePauw is a great place, and it is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. There's a lot of defining moments in your life. I guess the first thing, the greatest thing is marriage to my wife, Libby, and the 2, 3, and 4, the birth of my kids. But going to DePauw was something really special. I never would have met my wife or had my kids had that not happened. And it almost didn't happen. We had a pretty good football program up at Andren, and they still do. And the last minute, the heat of the recruiting season was on, and St. Joseph's College was one of the last schools that was really on me. And the coach called every day, said, "You got to sign this letter of intent. You got to commit." And I came down to DePauw one more time, and I just loved it. It was such a great place that I called him back and said, "Coach, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to DePauw." And it's one of the best decisions I ever made. When you come to something like this, I guess the most important thing is to recognize those who were there for you, and this would never happen without so many different people. And my way of recognizing people is to tell a story about them. And so there's some people in the room I want to share some things with because they were very important. The first one is Ted Catula. Catman, I'm sorry I didn't say hi to you yet. I didn't even know you were here. When I was a freshman, I was buried about as deep on the depth chart as you could be buried. And I was running the scout team one week, and I actually had some success. The scout team usually lost, but I made a few plays, and he said, "Who is that boy? He should be playing on Saturdays," you know. And I said, "Thanks, Coach." And after that, I did start against St. Joe, but I got one series, ran the option a few times, and that was it. I never saw the light of day and for a couple more months, but things did get better. Coach Ray, I want to say I'm glad to see you. Something I need to tell you, and I never told you ever, but your booming voice out there on the practice fields, those two-a-days in the morning, got us going. And I've been coaching football now for 5 years, and it's a wonderful experience to work with young people. And I get them going the same way right now. Good morning! And you really, I still think of you every time I yell out there at those kids, and enthusiasm is contagious, and it's something that you can pass on to kids, and you passed it on to us, and I do appreciate you for that. I've got to, unfortunately, recognize all the defensive teams that ever played on the same team as I did. And one of my great friends who's not here, Joe Dan, was a 3-year starter, and he is very fond of telling me the only reason I was any good at all was because we were on the field all the time. It was 4 and out, and then we got the field. And there's some truth to that, as Torque will is attest to. He's a great player and starter for 4 years, and you can't have a good offensive team unless you got a chance to be on the field. So 2 other people. When I came to DePauw, we struggled a little bit, but Jerry Berndt came here into the program, and he did a lot of good things for me. And I was a little bit shy at the time, and brought me out of my shell and gave me a chance to play. And I always knew I could play, but I needed a chance, and he gave me that chance. And I thank him for that. Nick, I have to thank you for a couple different things. First of all, for making my senior year great. It was a great season, and one that all of us graduated that year will remember forever. But the thing I thank you for the most is a funny story that not everybody knows about him. We had a whole slew of coaches that came in and interviewed, and they let the seniors interview the coaches. And all the coaches came in, a couple guys that had gone to DePauw, one guy, Coach Gruden, who was at Notre Dame, and they were all very formal, and we had this talk, and they were all very impressive. They knew some football. And Coach Nick came in and introduced himself, and within 2 minutes, he was on the blackboard. Now, here's what we're going to run this play here, and we got this here, and you're going to be over there, and this is going to be great. You're going to love it. And we walked out, and they asked us who we wanted. It was like, well, Coach Mourouzis, of course, you know. He's the guy. Other teammates I have to recognize very quickly, but not unimportantly. Jay, you gave a top 10 reasons why you were in the Hall of Fame, and I can tell you, you're a big reason I'm here. Every time I needed to play, you made it. I don't know if you remember when you were a senior in the Wabash game, we were actually up in this game, and they were nationally ranked at the time, and I threw I started off okay, and then I threw 2 interceptions, and we were down. So there's a minute and 24 left. We're on our own 15-yard line, and we've got to go 80 yards or 90 yards to score. And we did it, and there were several third-down plays that Jay made that were just unbelievable, and we had to get a 2-point conversion, and Jay caught that as well. And you don't throw for those kind of yards without guys like that. Well, Perk's next. Senior year against Wabash again. All of my passes weren't that good, believe me. There were guys that could catch it. Perk, I'll never forget the time that you laid out one hand across the field. He was wide open, by the way. I just missed him. He laid out. He laid out and just with one hand pulled it in. Perk was an all-state high jumper in high school, and he caught everything. It's a huge target, and without guys like you, Perk, this never would have happened. So thanks. I want to thank 2 people now that are probably most important. The first is my mom, Dorothy, who's here, and I'm saving them for last because it is the most important. My mom is a very tough lady and very strong and quiet, and I think to play quarterback, you have to be the same way. You've got to be a quiet leader. You've got to think. You've got to be on the field at that time, and you can't lose your cool. And my mom, all through the years, raising 3 boys and keeping football uniforms clean and getting us where we needed to be, I can tell you that there's no better mom in the world, and I thank you for that, Mom. Last, I want to thank my dad, who's not here. He passed away a few years ago, but he was a big reason why I came to DePauw. He pushed real hard. He knew this was a great place, and he pushed and kept saying things, not directly but indirectly. Gee, that's a really great place, and he really directed me here. Evidence of just what kind of relationship my father and I had. As everybody knows, after the Wabash game, the team that wins rushes over to get the bell. And when I was a senior, we had never rushed over to get the bell. We lost as freshmen, we lost as sophomores, which was a close game. As juniors, we tied. And when I was a senior, it was time to rush over and get the bell. And however many black jerseys were on that field that crossed the field to get the bell, there was one short, and that was me. And the place that I went was back up to the stands to see my mom and dad, because it was important to both of us. And I thank them for being there the whole time, because it was important to have them there to play. And I just want to say thanks again for everybody. I really appreciate it.